Hey, welcome to the block, the Leon block. That is, I am, of course, and your host, Jontel E. Poland. Thank you for joining. We're here. Knowledge is soul, and we have joining with us tonight, writer, poet, and seer Mary Williams. Welcome her to the Leon block. Thank you for joining us, Mary.
You're welcome. It's actually Maudie. I should have told you.
Madi,
Yeah.
yes, yes. See, my really dear friend Arden, she had pronounced her name that way, and I was like, hold up a second. I meant to ask you that, and I completely forgot. So Madi,
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. That is beautiful. All
Thank
right, so how are you today? First off,
you. I'm alive. I'm alive. Praise God.
yes, yes, for real, because 2020, for first off, 2020 was, excuse my language, a shit show. Um, but we're still reeling from the effects of 2020, if not more so now. So I mean, it's important to ask each other how we're doing, especially us kinfolk. I think it's really important to really check up on each other mentally, physically, spiritually, and ask each other like,
20.2, wait, 2022.0 or whatever.
yes, yes, that's exactly that. 2022.0. Hey, what's going on, Arden? What's
Hey,
going on, Ralph? What's going on, David? Good to see y'all. Thank you for joining us. All right. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about, for everyone joining in, where you were born, where you come from, and leading up to where you are today.
okay. Well, my name's Maudie Williams. I'm a writer. I'm a poet. As he said in the intro, I'm a seer. That's a newer one for me. Um, but so I don't really have anywhere that I say that I'm from because I was a military kid. So we moved, me and my mom, we moved around a lot. And so I don't really like to say that I'm from anywhere. But
I
yeah,
like that.
so I went to college in North Alabama. I graduated with a professional writing major. I don't use my degree. I have no plans to use my
That's
degree.
normal. That's pretty normal.
I look back now and wonder what I was doing. but uh but yeah, I mean I was just a kid, honestly. I'm 26 now. I was 18 when I started that program. Like I was a baby. So that's how I feel about that. And I think that, which not to like just jump into it, but I think that a lot of times um we just kind of have to we don't really get to choose.
Like our
We
path,
yes. Um we go where we can, where we're led to.
what we're
But
called.
exactly. Well, and at the same time, I, the schools that I went to, it was between an art school that was really expensive and an in-state school that had a major that included the word writing. So me being 18, I was like, well, I don't want to get saddled with debt, so I'm gonna go to the the school and major in professional writing. Um, but that's not. I honestly didn't even start writing poetry till August of last year.
So let me ask you this. Your writing, does that contain a lot of uh, feelings and events and what we endured last year, or was it just sparked off by it?
Mm, I think my I say, but I feel like I became a writer. I didn't become a writer when I started writing poetry, but I felt like I I started writing things that were purposeful.
Hmm.
And I think it was just really important to me now to feel like my words are purposeful, and that um, not necessarily like they're having an impact on somebody else, because that's just going to happen. Like when you share yourself, and when you are when you are you, when you're fearless, like which poetry is fearless in itself, but like when you're when you show who you are without this like film of what are people thinking about me, not that I don't do that, but like when you get up on a stage and you just are like, here is the darkest thought I've ever had in my life.
Yes.
Like, and people are in the audience like, like it's just a different
Yes.
feeling. It's a different
Yes.
feeling. And I haven't really gotten to do it that much because like I said, I started last or August of 2019. So I've only read things in public twice. And it's weird because like being on stage is really important to me.
Hmm.
I've been acting since I was a very like I think 7. And
Nice.
so being on stage is really important to me. And I kind of shucked that dream because like I said, we don't really get to choose. And I had felt like I couldn't write and act.
Huh.
Yeah, I kind of just I pigeonholed myself in a lot of ways.
So let me ask this. Your upbringing and environments that you've been in, where did racism start to come into play, or do you feel racism started to come into play that you have maybe started to really pinpoint recently, like maybe last year with everything that's happened?
Right. So, like I said to you, when you asked the question before about when I first encountered racism, it's funny because I feel like a lot of people probably went through this, but I only saw racism for a long time as being something that was very overt and very much a white person calling you the N-word, and that was sort of it. So I experienced a lot of racism that I now have to go back and accept as racism, because a white person would be racist to me and I would internalize it as there is something inherently wrong with me.
Right.
And not that, oh, this person is racist, because racism wasn't explained. The nuances of racism were not explained to me. I grew up in predominantly white schools with white history, with white teachers. There wasn't, and I feel like I have to get to hear about, well, what about your parents? Well, I personally believe that your parents can only give you as much as they have. And I've talked to my mom about this, but I know that she was also having to operate in spaces where you can't look racism in the face. You can't go up to your boss and say, hey, you're being racist, you know? And when we can't do that, when we have to maneuver in these spaces where we can't even call things what the fuck they are, I'm sorry.
Right. No, you're good. You're
When we
good.
can't call
Speak your
things what
truth,
they
sis.
are, like that is traumatizing to the body to have to hold these things in.
So were there like specific were there different situations that you had dealt with, like small things that um looking back, like you realized that you did bring to maybe your mother's attention growing up?
Yeah, I think that I know that when I was in middle school, there was some pretty like relentless bullying. And I did go to her at one point, but it wasn't like I was saying, these bullies are talking about my hair,
Right.
they're and misogynoir, the like misogyny against Black women is just so at the tip of all of that. And I'm 12. How I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know why these white boys are, making fun of my height, calling me a man because I'm tall, because, like because my voice isn't high pitched,
Hmm.
it's the like just making and I'm just
You're
all of these
fine. You're
thoughts
fine.
are
Right.
coming up, but just the way that we treat Black women is Black women and women presenting Black people.
Yes.
Really, it's just
Yes.
there's so much for us to unpack, that
Hmm.
we're still unpacking. That like because I was I think in middle school and high school when Obama was president, so I really
Okay.
wasn't engaged in the conversation about Michelle Obama, and her appearance. But now, being 26 and hearing about it, it's like, wow, wow,
I
wow.
think I think that's important in the sense of not even just representation, but promoting the opportunity to have more spaces just for y'all. I think that's extremely important because I think y'all are the backbone of this country. Y'all built this country, um, and it's important to have a space where you can nurture one another, but also provide that self care for one another. And given the statistical history of raising kids and working here in America, it can be very challenging to have those spaces. Um, so, like, what's your opinion on that?
So when you talk about that, I think about the ways in which, like, um so when I'm processing trauma, and I wonder, like, why my mom wasn't there for me in the ways that I needed her to be
Hmm.
as a child. And then I'm reminded that we live in a capitalist, white supremacist patriarchy where my
Yes.
mom did not have the time to address my emotional needs because she was just trying to keep the lights on.
Hmm.
And so I think that that is something that a lot of Black children in general have to contend with, because capitalism is just everywhere. You can't get out of it.
It's baked into us. It is. Um, I want to go back a little bit and talk about what we were talking about before with race and your upbringing. So, like, being bullied in school for different things, and I'm sure, like, feeling many different microaggressions being shot at you throughout your teenage years. When do you feel like you really started researching Black history and really getting taking upon yourself to try and understand maybe some of these things that you didn't?
I think that I have to definitely let go of the shame of saying this, but George Floyd, like, straight up.
Hmm.
And now I have to let go of the shame of that. I had not taken the time to understand who I was. And a lot of my time spent, um, and after in high school and college was survival. And I very much think that we are guided by our traumas. So there was a lot of time spent trying to prove to white people that I was worthy of their kindness,
Hmm.
like, flat out, that I was worthy of their kindness, when that is a that is literally what white supremacy wants you to do.
Right. Right. Bow
Like,
down and submit in any way that they see fit. And the thing is, don't feel bad about the fact that George Floyd might have, like, sparked or woke up all this shit. It does not matter when. It's a matter of the fact that you're doing it to begin with. The fact that you are now thinking in this way to begin with. That's all that matters, at least to me. And I think a lot of other people too. So and there's many of other people along with you. I will say, for one, that I'm not gonna lie, like I've always been someone that's been quote unquote woke, if that's what you want to put it. But I've always been someone that's always sought out to learn as much as possible. I've always been taught to think for myself, ask as many questions as fucking possible, question authority. I've always been taught to ask many questions. And I've always been taught to have a pride in my tone, my skin tone, my complexion, my ancestry, my blackness. But I still did. I connected the dots, but I did still never did anything about it. I never felt like there was anything I could do about it. I still accepted it as that's just the way it is. When it doesn't have to be that way. There comes a point where you become so tired and fed up, not only to seeing certain things, but being blind to, or maybe just accepting everything, that you just say, screw it. Like, okay. And when you see other people doing it, it inspires you. You know, I know for me, um, I now currently live in Lancaster, but I grew up. I was living at the time in York. Like I know how you said going through COVID, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But how COVID really did disperse people in a multitude of different ways. Not even just from massive evictions, but people just wanting to feel safe or just make sure that they're still secure. And that was definitely one of the issues for me. I had just got laid off from my jobs. I was staying in a small tight apartment with people that I didn't feel comfortable being around with COVID running rampant. And so I moved to a city about 30 minutes west of Lancaster called York. And I bunkered down there for a bit. Really, really was able to spiritually reconnect with myself and realign myself mentally with who I know myself to be. And it was literally at the perfect timing, because as I was freeing myself, boom, George Floyd got popped. And boom, protest out the ass. There was a protest in York. Downtown York, I decided to walk myself down there with my signs. And I went by myself. I bawled my eyes out. Well, I met somebody there, and me and her actually got so inspired by that, we decided to try and find a way to organize our own protest. So we went to Lancaster, the city I'm in here now, looking, because it's a bigger city. It was bigger protests going on, and looking for people to connect with to ask about how to start a protest. 2 days later, we threw a protest. Yeah. And we joined forces with tons of other people, and it just like was protests all over the county. And a lot of things happened here in Lancaster since, but it was literally like a whirlwind of emotions and things. And at that time, you know, seeing so many people be executed and their mental health disorders, disabilities, or issues being at the forefront or justification in some way as to why they got popped, which is still unacceptable, really did leave myself, for one, especially in the things that I went through and the things that I witnessed, being tear gassed and rubber bullets being thrown and fires. And I witnessed a lot of things. It's traumatizing, but I also feel like it's necessary to do that shadow work, to understand my ancestry. And I'm not saying that everyone has to do this and everyone has to go through this. Like, if you are immersed in this culture, like the way that I have been thrown into, I think it is important. But I do think that everyone should be doing it to some degree as Americans if we do want to progress as people, right? Go ahead.
Absolutely. That this work is imperative for our survival. And I think that a lot of people like to bypass the I think what you call shadow work.
Yes.
It's painful. It hurts. It hurts. And there was a time, I think, around summer where I was on Twitter, and apparently white people were tired, like they were tired after, they were tired from sharing memes on Instagram. And I just like, it just upsets me because the people thinking that like this work is something that can be done over social media, um, and not realizing that it's internal work to look at. I mean, unless you're a straight white male,
Mm-hmm.
you are being oppressed in
Mm-hmm.
some way. And
Correct.
you can be oppressed and also be an oppressor. Most of us are oppressing people in some way. We are, and like coming to terms with that and walking in that is really hard. And I don't think it's something that I don't know. It's hard for me to do. I definitely don't do it every day. But yeah, that's what I wish that white people understood more, is that it's painful. Yes, you are hurting because you're supposed to, like, it's supposed to hurt. That's life. And
What
yeah.
I will add to that is white people have a lot of catching up to do with doing that work, like a lot. But we have been so, what's the word? Our asses have been rode for so long as people, as collectively, as black communities, that we need a moment to like, center ourselves and connect as people, and really still come back together, and uh find like a spiritual connectivity, a better, stronger spiritual connectivity between us in
Well,
some form, fashion.
and I also wonder, like, when can that even happen, when, we're dealing with a pandemic and people are still dying, and like, I don't know. It's just there. It just seems like we're really in survival mode. And there were parts of 2020 where I was definitely, I needed to live in a delusion for a little while to survive, and I got, knocked on my butt, and I was like, oh, you were being delusional. You were
Yeah.
being
Stop
delusional.
being bougie because you got bills to pay. And yeah, no, I get that. Life is hard. And that's why I tell people, yo, when you get that income tax, do what you want. Buy a pair of shoes, buy that bag, get you some like tons of groceries and the stuff that you have been like dying to eat that you have not splurged on. Like, do it, because anything to keep your mental, like, keep you, put a smile on your face right now, I think is extremely necessary.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that the word that's come to mind for me lately has been like spiritual warfare. Um, and it's
Say it.
interesting the way that like I have really strengthened. I wouldn't even say strengthened. I would say like rebuilt my connection to God. Um, that's what 2020 has done for sure.
I think for anyone, and it doesn't matter what your faith is, or lack thereof, I just think it's important to find a way to ground yourself. Do you know what I mean? Whether that be looking inward, looking yourself in the mirror, or whether that be getting back to prayer, whether it be reconnecting with people of the same faith that you were really good friends with, and did studying with, or just kept up with each other's lives for support. These are the times where we really need those things as much as possible. And while we're on spirituality, I want to talk about, you're a writer, you're a poet, but you're also a seer. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that, and also how it connects to being a part of the Black diaspora and what that means for us.
Yes. I would definitely say like there's I don't know, maybe I shouldn't make a blanket statement like that, but it's hard for me to imagine myself coming into or returning to this power, returning to this site without my returning to self and returning to my Blackness, returning to my inner child. So like I said before, when we were talking, that I started doing ancestor veneration. I and it was at a time when I was alone. Like I
So
was.
for those watching, explain what ancestor veneration is.
It is connecting with your dead, the dead people in your line, and giving them, communicating with them, sitting there and talking to them. They're pictures, so and giving them offerings, putting items on your altar that they enjoyed when they were alive, and so my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, loved oranges. So I've been putting oranges and orange peels on my altar. Yeah. I'll put brown liquor. That's a very common thing to put. My grandparents
Yes.
cigarettes. I'll put cigarettes on my altar. I recently got a reading from someone who was like, somebody in your line wants some lipstick. So I went out today. I got some lipstick
Yes.
for them. Like, and it's really, like I said, like when I started this work, I was very, very lonely, and I've had to kind of contend with that word lonely,
Mm-hmm.
because I've come to realize that we are not alone.
No.
God and your dead, like your people, you got riders, you got angels, like
That's right.
you're not alone. And so they really helped me to see that, and it's just blows my mind, the love that I feel for them, because I never got to meet my grandfathers. I didn't get to spend very much time with my grandmother, at least not as much as I would have liked to. And so like to build this connection, this relationship to them, it has been such a blessing. And so I didn't start actually seeing the dead for up until recently. And it's been a very scary experience.
I can imagine.
Say that, like, that's what I mean by like returning to my faith. Like I have to have faith in God that like
Yes.
I'm okay. Like I'm okay. Like there may be all of these things going on around me, but like I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm alive. I'm loved. Like
Yes.
I'm okay. Like I'm here. God is with me, like my refuge. It's wild. It's just wild. Like I honestly, I won't ever say that I was atheist, but I definitely had times where I was agnostic, and I didn't have hope. That was a lot of it. I didn't think, I was like, God's not here. Where? And that
Right.
was some of the hardest times of my life. And right now is not easy. It's not easy at
Yeah.
all, but like having faith.
It's key right now.
Exactly.
It really is.
Knowing that like, okay, like everything feels like it's coming down, but it's not. And even if it is, like something, what I deserve is going to be put in its place. What's for
Mhm.
me is for me.
Hmm. We're no matter what we're going through, we're at the right place at the right time because there's a point for it. Everything happens for a reason, and I for one stand by that. 2020 definitely put me through some shit for sure, like a lot, but I'm still here. And while I'm here, I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to make sure that I'm doing my best to learn something new every day and do my best to love myself more every day. I'm definitely on a path of uh, self reaffirmation and self discovery. Um, and also, like, uh, what's the word? Coming to well, yes, self acceptance of like things that have went on in the past, um understanding very well that it's made me who I am, and I completely accept that part. But then sometimes you still get like embarrassed by little things that you wish you could have handled a little differently. um and when it comes to where we are today and how we're all struggling in some kind of form or fashion, um I think a lot of us do a lot of things are restrictive nowadays. So we do a lot of reminiscing on things pre-COVID, if you get my drift. And uh so then going down that rabbit hole is never good. And I think
Mhm.
because times are so uncertain and a lot of our mentals, have um I deal with certain mental issues. So it's
We all
important for me
do.
to it's important for us to continue to make sure we have a lot of self love, a lot of self care being done more so than ever. Especially because of those doubts or reminiscing on past things as they come up. I think it's important to take that time and say, okay, I'm shutting the fuck down right now. Excuse my language, but like I need to take some time for myself and do a little self love because I feel really drained. And I think that not only for black people and brown people, but especially young people
Mm.
really need to do that work more than anyone else. And I think the emphasis that needs to be put on letting these groups know this information really needs to be put out there. I speak about it a lot. Go ahead.
I was wanting to comment on a couple of things. First, what you said about, thinking back to like things that you could have done differently. I've been working on that as well. And what's helped me is to realize that like I did my best. Like the tool, like, yeah, my best may not have been hi, Jamaica. My best may not have been like the best. It may not have been right. That's the thing.
Right.
It may not have been right. And just understanding, like, yes, I have the power to hurt people, and I have hurt people, but that doesn't mean that I am excluded from forgiveness.
Right.
That doesn't
And the other key thing is you're going to hurt people again.
Right. Exactly. And then the other thing I was going to talk about was you were talking about self care, and I think that support is really important right now too. Like I used to think that I could just like get like just I can do it on my own, like because growing up I felt like I had to do it on my own a lot of times, which is something that a lot of Black people go through, especially when it comes to dealing with mental illness. Uh,
Yes.
it's been taboo for so long. So I think that having a good support system is so important. And with 2020, like I have gone through this kind of purging with a lot of friendships and I've gotten in that time, I've gotten so much closer to certain members of my family, even my mother. Like we have gotten closer over the pandemic, and I'm so appreciative of that. Just because like No one gets on your nerves or understands you as well as family.
Yes. Yes. No, you're right. You're right. Despite all of the flaws or the disputes, no one definitely gets you and is still there, to come to your rescue for the most part. Like, especially with black and brown families, like we definitely have a big understanding of shared experience. And I think that definitely unites us even more.
Well, I have
Um,
a question for you. Um,
yeah.
I'm thinking about like in because I feel like in self work it's kind of it includes like other people as well and like advocating for yourself and that's been a big thing for me and having to like have these hard discussions with my family discussions that maybe should have been had a long time ago but we weren't in the place to and so I wonder how have you been navigating um, those maybe harder discussions with the people you're close to.
Uh, it depends on the topic, the nature of the conversation. I like to treat each situation, no matter what the topic is or the situation, with uh, a unique energy. Everything has needs its separate, particular energy and attention to be paid attention to. But when it comes to like navigating having especially conversations with like family and friends about things that are going on, I still have a struggle with it. I'm still in that I can do things myself mentality, and I think that has a the isolation that we're going through right now has a big part to play in that, because generally I would be so, what do you guys think, what do you think I should do you know what I mean? And now I'm so, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that, and being that I don't really talk about it on my show much, but I'm running for city council here in Lancaster, and
That's
um,
amazing, by the way.
thank you. It's it's stressful. It's a lot. It comes with a lot of draining, sucking energy, and as a person of color, it comes with a unique uh uh energy with it that takes a lot out of you, and all the different intersections that I cross, it
Right.
it brings a whole uniqueness to it, that I've had to navigate in my own sense. Bobby, I cannot. Nah, don't even do that to me, okay? I was getting there. um because I do think that it is important for me to speak to my truth. And the truth is that this is hard, and I'm not going to lie about that. I'm not going to shy away from that. And I'm not saying that to deter anyone away. I'm saying it to prepare you for the fact that I'm here and I'm staying here to make it easier for the next person after me. You know, and I've went into this blindly. I went into this being a complete underdog, but the fact of the matter is, this is not going to be my first rodeo. This legit just inspired me to go full frontal. Like, I want to get the Senate. Maybe I could be a president someday. Like, this is not even the realm that I saw myself. I never saw myself doing this whatsoever, but I see the importance of it. I see the energy that comes with it. Um, when I see Nina Turner, when I see Malcolm Kenyatta, when I see Brian Sims, when I see Kamala Harris, when I see Stacey Abrams, people like that really, like, they touch my heart. They get at my soul. They give me goosebumps when I listen to them, because what they say really resonates with me. And some of them more so than others, because I share even more experiences with them.
Mhm.
And so being able to showcase where I uniquely come from, I think would shed more light on other people being able to follow in those footsteps. And I think that's important. And there's a lot of energy that comes with that. There's a lot of investing energy that comes with that. And so when I talk about like to the
Well,
difficulty of
I
it,
mean, you're working for the people, and
yes.
that's what a lot of Congress people in Congress, I think, don't pretend like is not going on. Like, you are working for us. So what are you doing? Why are people still being evicted? Why don't we have our money?
Yes.
What's going on?
I think this is the conversation that we should be having is more like what are we doing, or what are you doing, city council, for example. And city council really doesn't, they don't talk to the people. If you look at, because we're in COVID, so you have to look online and go to YouTube, and you can see Lancaster City council meetings, and the language that they use is not language that the ordinary person can pick up and understand and dissect. The language in which they use is not talking to the people. And then they'll turn around and say, public, any questions? What kind of fucking question would I have? Excuse my language, but what kind of question would I have? I don't understand what you're saying. You need to reiterate, please. You know, thank you. And the problem with that is the fact that the people on the city council are all black and brown people.
We're all colonized. I mean,
thank you. Let's talk about it.
We're all colonized, and they don't actually. They don't have to enslave us using actual slavery. We have these things. We have these, and we have all of these structures that they've created. They've and let me just say, oh wait.
Talk about Biden.
Exactly. The white liberals. It's a conversation.
Yes. And we could talk about that in a second too while we're at it.
But what I was saying about our minds being colonized, like it's the workings of capitalism. We don't even have time to give a frick. Like, when are we supposed to give? Like, we're working. We're literally just trying to survive. Like, when are we? I mean, I'm so happy that we've that the protesting that happened last summer and has continued to happen, especially in small cities. I actually want to shout out the town that I lived in, that I went to college in. There is a group there called Project Say Something. And after George Floyd passed, after he was murdered, they were trying to get a statue taken down, a Confederate statue taken down, and they've still been trying to get that statue taken down. And I think at one point they were out there every day for months. And a lot of people want to equate the South with like, oh, well, you shouldn't have voted red. Like, what? There are black and brown people in the South like that do not vote red.
Right. And while we're at it, on the other side of things, Pennsylvania here is one of the most racist states around, and there's a lot of people defending the Confederate flag and the Confederacy when they weren't even in a Confederate state. And while we're at it, Confederate statues, we have some here in Gettysburg, PA. Gettysburg is, yes, and for people that know American history, Gettysburg is very significant to American history, and there are statues that have not been taken down yet, and we're still trying to get taken down. So this is still going to be an ongoing fight, and we need captains in the beginning, at the forefront of the line, right? So you spoke to like white liberals, and what I want to say to that, going along with like, okay, we've got tons of black and brown people that really have not been able to like join this fight for equality based off of they're busy. They're too blinded by capitalism, or they're too busy trying to stay alive and survive. But then you've also got the people that are waking up to this and joining into politics, but then getting sucked into politics or being blinded by that money, and then they don't really end up being effective. And I think the solution to that is cramming in as many disenfranchised black, poor, brown, yes, working class people as possible in at the same time. So there's a whole generation or two of people moving in, knocking down these doors and setting up shop, bringing their own chairs, tables, couches, beds, and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm not going anywhere, because change will be here. Change is coming because I'm bringing the change. I am the change. You feel me? And that goes back to, and I hate to cut you off. It goes back to the energy. Speaking to the energy of it, I think a lot of people misunderstand that a politician's job is to serve us. And we've been so used to seeing them walk all over us and not listen, just dismiss, you know what I mean? Be rats, if you will. And it does not mean that we cannot change that narrative, right? We're so used to just accepting things the way that they are. And that, I think, is what really needs to change above anything else. I'm sorry, I want to switch topics real quick because we're limited on time, but I want to talk about, because you said you didn't get to really do much research on it. Vaccine disparities. As we know, COVID-19 is affecting Black and brown people disproportionately as far as compared to white counterparts. And what we've been seeing is a lot of white people, well-to-do or affluent people or people with more access, transportation-wise, going into brown areas and getting vaccines, and then brown people not being able to get the access that they need. And then also we're seeing our country and the richest countries in the world are hoarding all of the vaccines to the point where 100 of the poorest countries do not have any vaccines whatsoever. So that's obviously like a mirror image of what the world is as far as class and what we're all fed and what we're getting. It's another example of it. So like it still highlights all of the chasms that have always been there, correct? So that's really where that's coming from. I think. Well, I want to ask you, what do you think, actually?
What do I think?
Yeah.
That it's another. Are they going to be honest about it? Is, I think, a question to ask. Are they going to be honest about it? Because I'm thinking of what happened in Texas as well, with the power going out and the power not going out in certain areas when the CEOs of their private electric company, how is an entire state? I mean, I don't know if it's just Texas, but like electricity is privatized. Texas. What the heck?
It's just Texas. It's just Texas because of their government's mentality. Because I won't say it's the people, because there's a lot of fine people in Texas that have nothing to do with this. But then on top of that, doubling down, like think about, okay, we've got a few years ago with the hurricanes that impacted Houston, for example. Now we've got this whole situation jumping on top of COVID and disparities against Black and brown people, right? And then now you've got Texas is going to be opening back up 100%.
Yeah,
bars, restaurants, like the whole nine, opening back up 100%. I heard that and I was like, what? Like my ears perked up and I'm like, this Texas of all places. Like, I mean, I kind of get it hearing what, I don't know if you heard what Ted Cruz said at the CPAC thing a few days ago, but yeah, he made a comment that like, Florida's better than Cancun, or Florida's a lot nicer than Cancun, or something like that. And I was like, dude, like how insensitive can you
no
get?
Way. He did not.
Yes, he did. That CPAC thing.
What?
I will. Yes. I sat and it was when I was in Ohio the other day. So I was in the car, like, you know, it's a long ride from Toledo to Pennsylvania, back to Pennsylvania. So I'm sitting there. I don't like to entertain Trump. I don't like to feed into the whole narrative anymore. He's out. Let's not talk about him as much as possible. That's my whole mentality against this. But to stay in the know and understand what was going on, because I kept hearing a lot of things like the golden Trump that they were worshiping and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, it's enough. Let me see what's going on with this. The lies being told were ridiculous. So my point is that we can't let our foot off the gas. There's a lot of work that we have to do. We still have a lot of educating to do, not just as Americans, but Black Americans, we have a lot of self-educating still to do. We just had Black History Month. Let's keep up that momentum. There's a lot of stuff that we just put out there for even us to dissect. There's a lot of information that a lot of Black folks still don't know, and it's okay to say that you don't know. I think at this point it's understood that there's a lot that we don't know. What were you gonna say?
Think that because I'm thinking about my experience personally, and oh yeah, about Texas. I was born there, so
So you're familiar with Texas.
Family there, but I think that growing up for me, and I'm thinking about in terms of maybe more recently, actually, in my 20s, and as far as educating myself on, I'm sorry, my cat is.
Oh, hi.
Oh. He's just okay. Anyway,
no, you're fine.
Educating myself, it didn't come until I wanted it to, until I was ready, because I did such a good job of keeping myself in this bubble. And
yes,
so many of us live in these bubbles, and you're not seeing anything that is outside of your bubble unless you are being radicalized to look outside of your bubble. And so I think that the work, again, the work is internal. And I struggle with this definitely more recently in. It's just it's hard for me to how do I want to say this? When white people are constantly like wanting information from me, how can I do this better? How can I do that better? It's very zapping of my energy and my time. And I don't think that a lot of them don't think that I deserve to be compensated for it. Free labor, like slavery.
Nah, our minds are not for sale. Get that money, honey, because this is a capitalist world that we live in that we have not benefited from for over 400 years or since the inception of it. Sorry to cut you off, but that grinds my gears when people. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, that's just what I was saying. I teeter between wanting to help people and also being like, you know what? Google is free. Google is free. And don't come in my inbox on some dumb shit, because I'm going to call you out. And I'm not going to feel bad about it.
Yes.
I think it's just been,
for real.
It's been a lesson, and I've always had, it's always been a struggle for me to advocate for myself, especially when it comes to what I deserve in terms of relationships and just interactions when it comes to white people, because, this book, Post-Traumatic Slave Disorder. Have you read that?
No, I have not yet. I've heard of the book. I have
it. But I started it and I was like, I was just seeing all of these places in which I was playing the slave willingly.
There's something I want to touch on real quick while we're on that topic, because it's something that I read about a couple of years ago, and I constantly think about it, and I really don't bring it up or talk about it with people. And it's the phrase "ceding your space." When we tend to be in public spaces, white people tend to, if they're walking past us, they just expect us to move out of their way. When they're driving and we're walking across from the parking area into a and we're walking into a grocery store, for example, they expect to just drive past us and we wait for them to pass. But if a white person walks out, they wait for that white person to cross the street and then they drive past. And I'm not sure if anyone else notices this, but I notice it, and I noticed it happens a lot. And it's something that really upsets me. It's something that frustrates me. And so I've actively taken it upon myself to not cede my space, to constantly exude my own authority within the space that I am presently in. If I am on a corner and a car is supposed to be slowing down and they're trying to run at it, no, I'm going to walk across that street, like a crosswalk. We have many crosswalks in downtown Lancaster, and state law is if a person's at that crosswalk, they can just walk across. And if you're coming, you should be see, Arden, I'm sure you have experience in itself. I don't know how the laws are, but I would assume it's the same way. But I'll start walking out on the street, and they'll get upset that I'm walking like just darting out into the street. But this is law. This is my I'm allowed to do this by law, and you by law are supposed to stop. Same thing for being in someone's space in a grocery store. I can understand there's a difference between being rude and not ceding your space, though. But if you're within, where was I? When I was in Ohio, and I went to the Toledo Museum of Art, and I was standing in a walkway, but there was tons of room, more than enough room for like 3 or 4 people arm to arm to walk past. This woman literally just wanted me to get out the way, and she stops and asked me to move. And I kind of looked at her like, I mean, there's all this space, but you want me to move. Why? To make yourself feel better. Like, I don't get that. But I'm constantly mindful of these things. And I think that we call ourselves young kings, young queens, and we really need to exude that. We really need to think about when we're carrying ourselves in public. Carry yourself with authenticity and passion and purity, and make sure that you hold your head held high. Make yourself remind yourself that you are rich. Rich is not a matter of funds. It's a matter of feeling, you know. And that end of my rant, but go ahead if you want to piggyback.
To that effect, with especially with microaggressions.
Oh, you go ahead, and we'll get to the comment in a second. Yeah.
Especially with microaggressions, what's helped me is to be in my body. I think a lot of times we are told that everything is what we see.
Right.
You know, so are you sure that person really meant that? Is that what they said? Is that what they said? I don't need to know what they said. I could feel it, you know.
This is my experience.
The body keeps the score. The body remembers. And so I think it's easy when we're not like in our bodies and slowing down to just let people do whatever they want and act, to let white people, let white people run amok however they want and treat you however they want, you know.
Right.
When you're not in your body, you're and I've just had that experience with dissociating, just so that I could get to the point where I feel safe.
More than ever, now is the time to be calling out white people on the way that we've been treated, to recorrect their behavior towards how they treat us. If there's any time in history to be doing this work, it's now. And I understand that we are exhausted. By no means should we feel obligated or have to educate anyone ever. But I do think that if there's any time to do it, it is now. Arden, she said, I was told before getting there. I was told everybody has their place. They definitely knew my place was anywhere I wanted to be.
I love that.
Yes. No, because I seriously, I take this serious, because I think that the subliminal things are things that we have not really spoken on yet, because obviously we're still getting at the technicalities of stuff. People still want to criticize the way that we speak on racism or the way that we want to combat racism, and that is an issue in itself. But us as Black people can do our own work Black and brown people and people of color, when we can do our own work when it comes to making sure that we do not cede our space and that we hold our own authority within our own spaces that we go into, because it's not about uh ourselves in, which is anywhere we want to be, as Arden was saying. What's up? What's up, Guido? Nice to see you. I think that that's the most important thing to take away from that is where we are now. We've had tons of Black Power movements over the year, right? Over the years. I think this time is very different. I think this time we've gotten to the point, especially with millennials and Gen Zers, that I don't know if you heard of the Afro punk festivals and movements, but
Mhm.
I want to go so bad, but just embracing the multifaceted ness of Black people and the Black diaspora in our culture, because we are so unique and so different. And I will speak to why I was so excited about having you on the show, because you are not only just a writer and a poet, but now you are a seer, and I think that is something to really highlight, cherish, and speak on, because a lot of people are so used to associating just Black and Christianity, but not associating Black spirituality and the variations within one's faith and one's spirituality within the Black diaspora, because we're all not one person. We're all not the same. We have many different experiences, and it's important to remind each other of that, not use it to divide us or use it to let them divide us, because we need to have a respect and a camaraderie, a love for one another's differences. Like, okay, you're from the islands, you do that, that's what you do, I love it, let me learn about it some more, and let me show you what I do in place of that. You know what I mean? Like, let's connect, let's talk about our differences, and let's show everyone that we love all the differences between us. We love that some of us have loose coils and some have tight naps. We love that some of us have thick lips and some of us have pointy noses. You know what I mean? We love our differences. We love our shades, even though they like to use that to create hierarchies. And historically, some of those have been there. Africa is a continent, not one monolith. It's a multitude of different countries, races, ethnicities, and cultures. So not everyone got along, and not everyone saw themselves as equal just as much as any other society. And that speaks to the humanity of us. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant. Was you gonna say something, love?
Say something about because you brought up, I think, colorism.
Yeah.
And so in that book, gosh, I forget the author's name, but post-traumatic slave syndrome, she discusses the roots of colorism, that and how they started in slavery.
Yes.
And that white people literally, or slave masters literally, pitted Black people against each other, so that they could create that division, and that division is still affecting us. And I think the most important thing with that is to just simply be aware of these structures and be aware of who created them. Because my little sister, she's half Mexican and half Black, and she was telling me the other day that sometimes Black people assume that, or they don't like her because she's light skinned, and they think she's snooty. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. This has origins. Like, you can only be you, but at the same time, you can't get mad at them for like, they didn't create this hierarchy.
Right.
So
I think understanding, not just saying, okay, this is the way it is, but taking the time to really say, okay, well, we know this comes from somewhere. Where does it come from? Do you know what I mean? And having those questions or asking ourselves these things really will spark maybe a progression past that. Same thing with me running for city council. I think that the initial shock of it is really like, it's mind-blowing for me. It's hard, it's challenging, but hopefully like it's something that we as people can move past the stigmatism, or the stereotype of a snaky ass politician or an old white man as a politician. Like, let's see a black queer man as a politician and be able to trust him and know that he's just like us and he's not changing for nothing, and let's move past that and then think of what we can do beyond that, you know yeah, I think one last thing that I want to touch on, before we wrap up. I've so enjoyed talking with you. It's been so awesome. I would definitely love to talk more in the future about like more fine-tuned topics, because I think we can really delve deep into things. But it's been a pleasure to get to know you and your thoughts on things surrounding a number of these issues that we touched on. But again, one last topic that I want to touch on is the need for more Black media. uh, I think that we're in a very, again, unique position to really take capitalism by the horns, and the lack of distrust in traditional media and indie labels and entities and social media, and how multiple people such as myself are taking to platforms and doing things on our own. It's time that we a network as much as possible, b really empower and highlight as many people of color that are doing this as possible. Shout out to Madi Williams, who also has an Instagram you can follow her on, as well as Facebook too. It's important to, yes, connect one another, shout out one another, and show that love. But also it's important to check each other's stuff out.
Yes.
I didn't know about this until maybe like 2 months ago, when I moved into my new place. But there's a Black media channel called BNC, Black News Channel.
Oh,
And if you have Roku on your TV, you can get it. You can just go on there, and it's on the like the TV guide part. If you just click through the channels, you can find it. And so it's pretty interesting. It's like kind of reminiscent in the sense of like BET, kind of, but not geared towards entertainment though. It's geared towards
right.
Black media and Black news. Um, so the way that they showcase news, is it's not, it's just interesting to see things geared towards Black people, and things that are important to us. So like some of the information that I've heard on, based on the racial disparities with vaccines, any information with COVID and stuff, come from that channel. uh there is a local entity here, in Lancaster, that is the first Black owned media company here in the area, which are doing a really great job. They're called TCP, the Culture Professionals. So whether it be locally or nationally, I think it's important to really capitalize on this, and for as many people to move to doing that as possible. If they see they have a lot of information that they want to put out there, put it out there. Even if it's just coming up with a blog and a website and just writing every week something. Even if it's just having poetry and finding a way. Look, you can hit up an independent publisher and release that shit on Amazon. I've bought a couple people's books, and I'm in the process of putting together a book as well. But it'll be a few months now from now that I'm going to do it, actually, because I've kind of slowed down, but it's still something that is a goal. And I encourage everyone else to do the same thing. You as well. I know that you're a writer and a poet. Again, Maddie Williams is a writer and a poet. And is there any way that we would have access to your work, or do you showcase it in any form or fashion?
I had a poetry Instagram that I actually just deleted the other day.
Boo.
Well, there was a reason behind it. I could have just renamed it, but I created this poetry account. It was called The Words From Within. And it was kind of like an FU to a professor who told me that I couldn't that I couldn't do a literary magazine at our school, and I had at the time been like, "You're right, I can't do that." An online literary magazine. It's not, I'm not gonna stop doing poetry, Arden. I'm still gonna be doing poetry. I just don't feel like I need to put poetry out under the guise of this other name. You know, I feel like I want what I say to have my name behind it.
I can relate.
That account very much felt like a shield, like it's just the words from within, you know, white people don't get angry, like, you know, this is what I have to say. And this is, I never had a YouTube, Arden, but I do have some poetry posted on my Facebook. I'm going to start posting more poetry on my my Instagram, and I might even post some old poetry. But yeah, I got rid of it because I felt like it was holding me back. That it didn't have.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm going to be putting more stuff out there, doing more with my writing. But yeah, so it's just
I
gonna
look forward to it.
happen.
You are such a bright light, and you feel like a very old soul. And I really appreciate the time that you have taken to be a part of my show, and blessing us with your presence means a lot to me. And I really am excited to see your journey. I know you're moving to California, right? So I'm really excited to see your journey. And, you know, once you get settled and everything, definitely we're going to have to plan for another episode to talk some more, like I said, about another fine tuned topic. But again, I really appreciate you joining us. You can find Mighty Williams on Facebook and Instagram, instagram.com/Mighty Williams with an underscore. And of course, you can also catch me on all my platforms: Facebook, here, the Leon Block; YouTube, the Leon Block channel; Spotify, my Spotify playlist, podcast called Anarchist Newsletter with my buddy Bamzino. And you can also, as you know, I am running for Lancaster City Council. Please donate to my campaign and support me. I do have a Facebook, John Till E. Tolan, for Lancaster City Council. You can follow me there as well. I do have TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, where you can also find me as well. So again, thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Mighty Williams, it has also been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. And I guess that is it. You all, please take care of yourselves. Lead with love, light, and compassion. And be safe. Hold on, Mighty Williams. I will speak to you in a second. Everyone, be safe. Have a good one. And love all.